lot of people have questions about the functions of the clippers. They have questions about guards versus blades, what clippers do what. In this video right here, I'm going to show you the difference between guards, blades, and how to cut with different tools. Now here we have our Babyliss trimmers. Notice, this is the cutting blade, this is the still blade. You are going to get two different variations from this one clipper alone. So when you are cutting and you turn it this way, and you're cutting that way, notice the cutting blade is directly on the skin. That's going to be the closest that you're gonna get, okay? So when you're cutting this way, that's as close as you can possibly get with this clipper. Now, for sensitive areas, you wanna flip it around this way. So the back of someone's neck, underneath their lip, you wanna turn it this way. Now notice the still blade is in between the person's skin and the cutting blade. This is the cutting blade right here, okay? So this cuts a little bit less than if the cutting blade was directly on the skin. So these are the two different variations. One, cutting blade on the skin directly, or flipping it over and cutting blade away from the skin with the still blade in the middle. With our Andis Masters themselves, you have 5 different notches, okay? Notch 1, notch 2, notch 3, notch 4, and notch 5. This is 5 different notches, 5 different outcomes. Now, as soon as you put a guard, so here we have our 0 guard, and these are magnetic, so they move. So once you put a 0 guard on here, you now have 5 different outcomes with a guard. So now notch 1, notch 2, notch 3, notch 4, notch 5, that's with a guard. And as you can tell, we have 5 different guards. So that's even more outcomes. So as I take this off, put this back, between the 5 notches here and the 5 guards, we actually have 30 different outcomes. Remember, there's 5 notches here with no guard on it. As soon as I put a guard on it, this is 5 more options. This is 5 more options. We got our 5 notches. Then I take this guard off. We're at 10 options right there. Then we put the number 1 guard on. Then there's 5 different options here. After that, we put our 2 guard on, our 3 guard, and our 4 guard. So altogether, we have 30 different outcomes with this one clipper. That's a lot to remember. Now, these are our Oster 76s. These are an absolute beast of a clipper. We can do 2 things with this clipper. We can cut with this clipper, and we can also blend if we know to use our guards correctly. So when we talked about the haircut itself, the blend, and the shape up, technically speaking, with the Oster 76s, if you really know what you're doing, you only need these and a pair of trimmers. However, we're gonna show the difference between the Oster 76s and how to get different levels of closeness with our blending clipper. We have our different blades. There are more blades, but for purposes of this instruction, we are going to go through these 7 blades right here. Okay, so here we have our numbers on them. This is our 000 blade. There's only 2 blades before that. There's a 50 and a 40. Then we have our OA. Then we have our number 1 blade, our 1A blade, our 1.5 blade, our 2 blade, and our 3.5 blade. Okay, so with our Oster 76s, we are going to compare the Oster 76s to the Andis Masters. Now, this is a regular blade. Now, depending on what kind of blade you have, things could be different. If you have a surgical blade is gonna cut closer. So this is our regular standard blade. This is a 000 on the Oster 76. If I were to use my Andis Masters, I can get to the same place by pushing this all the way to notch number 1. Okay, so notch number 1 on the Andis Masters is equivalent to the 000 blade on the Oster 76s. Now, when we go to an OA, notch number 3 is equivalent to an OA blade. Okay, notice I skipped notch number 2. Now, if we are going to a 1 blade, notch number 5. Notice we omitted notch number 2 and notch number 4. There are no blades that are in between these two. So that is why the Andis Masters are exceptionally good for blending, because they get to a level of customization that you cannot get to with the Oster 76s. So I can get to a different length because I can go here to notch number 2 and notch number 4. There was no corresponding blades right here to get to that level of closeness. So sometimes you'll use your Oster 76s and you'll still see a line. You want to use your Oster 76s as much as you possibly can, cut the hair down, and even maybe a little bit of blending. Once you get to a point where you can't get a line out, that's when you want to use your Andis Masters or your blending clippers to get that additional line out. First, you want to make sure that you memorize the blade progression with your Oster 76s, and then memorize your guard progression with your Andis Masters, your blending clippers.